Hey everyone, me and Little Monarch here. We're going to talk about Tales of Aria. Well, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic day. I hope it's beautiful outside where you are. Go outside, enjoy the outdoors. It's a beautiful day here in West Virginia. If not, then, I don't know, watch a TV screen with something pretty on. Anyway, let's talk about Tales of Aria. This video I think is going to be called Tales of Aria is a $100 box, something like that. I don't know. Tales of Aria right now available pretty widely at about $105 to $115, depending on if you're buying it from a store or from TCG Player or wherever you're at. You're hearing some people talk about locally, it's still available for about $100 a box. And first off, I want to make a statement because I feel like the community has gotten my attitude wrong about Tales of Aria. I don't care about the financial value of Tales of Aria. I don't have like a massive position in Tales of Aria or anything like that. I care that Channel Fireball was selling boxes at $175 a box as pre-order before stores and LGSs, like the place that you play, even got their allocation and compete on pricing, and that because of that, prices were inflated at $175 up to $200, and because of that, people lost out on 50% of their money, 75%, whatever the math is. They lost out on a big chunk of their money compared to now. And I understand that a lot of things happen in TCGs and pre-ordering is bad, but I just don't like that there wasn't the competition. So I want to talk about Tales of Aria and why it's a $100 box, because here's the deal. TOA, in my opinion, is going to be a $100 box short term. It's probably going to stick that way. In my opinion, Monarch First Edition would have started out at a $100 box had we known some things about it, and it would have just been a slow growth at that point too, because the world of Flesh and Blood has changed, and that's okay, and that's great. The easy short-term quick flipping money is gone, and that's good. Now we are talking about long-term investment, healthier investment, more classic TCG investment. It's as it applies to sealed box prices and even singles and stuff like that. So I wanted to talk about why is the game different now. I think that, first off, I think that Flesh and Blood products will still have a better premium of investment than something like a Magic the Gathering standard box or something like that. I still think long-term cold foils, first edition boxes are going to have a better ROI, especially in the first 5 years or something like that for these first edition Flesh and Blood boxes, especially if the game keeps on growing at the rate that it has been growing at and the player base keeps on growing. You will see that all transition to a healthy kind of movement over a longer period of time. But the quick flip money is gone. And again, I think personally that's a good thing. But I think that we have to address that the game is different now. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. And I think that that makes good content and good dialogue to talk about what are some of the reasons that things have changed from, we'll call it WTR, Arcane, and Crew, kind of like the pinnacle of Flesh and Blood collecting, to now what is going on with Monarch, what is going on with Tales of Aria, and why are we not seeing the same patterns happen that happened with those boxes. So I wanted to talk about those things. I think it's important because we're talking about long-term investment now. So what happened? I have 3 points here. Number one, I think that the talent system kind of changed the collectability aspect of Flesh and Blood. If you look at WTR, if you look at ARC, if you look at Crew, they are, you don't have those talents. It's more of a general feel of what the set is. And in addition, you don't have, in TOA, in Monarch you do have some generics, but in Tales of Aria, Ellie, whatever, I call it TOA, you also don't have these generics. So the short-term money doesn't pop up because you don't have those generics, you don't have the E-Strike or whatever to kind of add some value to the set that kind of works in the short term. Now, where I think the key here is that because of the talent system, again, if you compare it to Magic the Gathering, you've essentially created a box, a Magic the Gathering, called a standard box, that only has 2 of the 5 colors or 3 of the 5 colors for Magic the Gathering in it, which is, again, no criticism here. It's just different. It's a different approach. And because Flesh and Blood has such a you get so in love. You fall in love with your hero. You fall in love with, you gravitate towards like this individual hero, and you get to, if your hero isn't represented or if your class isn't represented in the box, you may not want to partake. There are people, I'm sure, who said, I'll buy one box of Tales of Aria, I'll open it up and I'll experience it, but I don't need to I don't really need to engage with the set at all because it doesn't have any cards for Wizard, right? I don't really need to engage with the set at all because I already play, I guess there was stuff for Runeblade, there's stuff for Guardian, there's, stuff for, I guess if you're Azalea, you got, Seek and Destroy. There's some cards specific to some of the heroes, but for a lot of the heroes, there's just not a ton in the box for you. And we'll get to draft and sealed in a minute. But because of that, the amount that people want to buy into the set is greatly reduced. And so that just kind of changes the demand, which again is fine. That's not saying anything bad about the game. It's not anything bad about the set. It's just a different direction than say a set that has generic cards or cards for the majority, or in WTR Ark's case, half of the classes. So I think that's a different element that the talent system brought with Monarch, and the talent system added onto with I see whenever I think Ellie, I think Eldraine, I think Throne of Eldraine, with Tales of Aria, Toa. And so I think that's just a different element that was brought into it. And that's why, I think if we knew about the talent system, well, we were all super hyped about the talent system when it was announced. But if we knew and really understood how the talent system was going to affect the market and affect the game, then I don't think that everyone would have gone as heavily into Monarch as people did. And that wouldn't have driven the prices up at the beginning. So that's the first thing. I think the talent system just creates a different dynamic when it comes to investing or collecting, where you don't have as big of a reach in the community because not everyone wants to collect all these new heroes because they already maybe have their heroes that they collect for. Secondly, really same thing. So it decreased demand because you don't have as many players who want to play that specific hero. But then you also have apparently a very much increased supply. And that is probably the biggest factor to the current state of the Monarch or Tales of Aria market is the supply. We saw this with Monarch, where we saw some stores adding significant amounts of boxes into the market, like 1,000 boxes into the market. Now, I don't know if you've heard this, but distribution, there's been pretty much, I wouldn't even call them rumors, stores have come and told a few people in the community that they are getting Monarch first edition boxes from distribution at some big orders, and so there's additional supply coming from distribution. And so what that means is that the supply is just much, much bigger than it was for Crucible of War or WTR or Arcane. And because of that bigger supply, yes, we've seen a ton of players come into the game. Yes, we've seen all that. But because of the bigger supply with the addition of Unlimited and that kind of thing, it's just kind of hamstringing the financial value. Again, it's a long-term play here. This is no more quick flips. It's no more easy money. This is now long-term investment, which is also a good thing. That's not a bad thing. And I don't know why Little Monarch's crying about it, but it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing that is the way it is. Things have changed. And now this last thing I want to chat about is our history with Unlimited and Majestics. I made a video about this probably 8 months ago, where I was questioning what will the difference be in the financial value of a first edition card compared to an unlimited card once the supply issues were fixed. This was way back when unlimited supply was still rough and whatever. And what I kind of made that argument of is there's just not that much different between the two cards. Unlike Magic the Gathering, where you have this white border versus black border conversation, it's just a little symbol on the bottom. I was just like, do people really matter? And I personally do. I personally much rather have a first edition. Whenever I buy anything on TCG Player, I buy the first edition rainbow foil. That's what I buy. That's what I like to do. I am a collector investor as much as I am a player. So if I'm buying a card to play with, I'm buying the absolute pinnacle of that card because I can buy it to play with. I'm also investing in and collecting it. And so for me, that's the way I do it. But for the average player, do they really care? Do they really care? And I think that what we've learned is that, especially with Monarch, people just don't care. If you look at the first edition, I'm talking non-foil, I'm not talking rainbow foil. I think there's a difference, there's a premium there, but the majority of the box, you're talking about the majestic regular cards at this point in time. Now, in future, I think we'll see we'll see it grow and we'll see it change, but at this point in time, you don't see the difference there for Majestics. The players simply don't care. They don't want they don't want the first edition card. They just want the cheapest version of the card. And because no one's buying the first edition Majestic non-foils, that brings the prices down, and there's not the premium between the first edition and the Unlimited. And so what that's causing is a lack of EV added, lack of estimated value added to the first edition boxes when Unlimited comes out. And so when Unlimited comes out, it's sucking money from the first edition market, and that causes the boxes to be worth less if you open them, which makes less people open the boxes, which means more sealed boxes stay in the market, which means that the sealed box price doesn't increase in the short term. Again, the long term, the game's going to be successful, the game's great, but in the short term, things have changed, and that's an important distinction to understand and to understand the difference. So the question is anything broken? And the answer is no, probably not. It's not. It's just now different. It's a much different world. I think that the supply is interesting. I think personally, there's been a lot of conversation in the community talking about first edition and Unlimited and what should the relationship be. I really hope LSS is listening to that dialogue in the community and that they make some announcements or some changes or some suggestions. And I really hope that we see what the supply is of these first edition products, because I do think that that is super important to the investors and to the collectors. I think they really want to know that information. And now, lastly, I said we were going to talk about TOA as a draft set too, because Tales of Aria is a fantastic draft experience. It's super fun. I think it's way better in draft than it is in sealed, based upon, I don't want to get into that. But where I think this happens is I think there's some dialogue of, hey, Tales of Aria is a really good draft experience, so people are going to want to open boxes to draft them. I think that's probably true. Although I think that the answer to that is going to be that people are going to do that with Unlimited. So again, you have this kind of attitude of Unlimited solves a lot of the questions. Does first edition hold? Will it solve any problems for itself? And so that's where I want to see things go. I don't see that the draft experience is really going to affect the first edition box prices, because Unlimited is coming out, and that's going to be in the market and provide such a relevancy to the market. So last thing as we get into this, if you're still here at the end, we saw a huge decrease in value of cold foil legendaries from Monarch. It was really tough to evaluate why that was. I would say that right now there's a dialogue going on Facebook. What is undervalued in Tales of Aria? I think that the cold foil commons are probably at their bottom. They just can't go any lower than like $10, right? Like if they're going lower than $10, then that's a question. Like that's an issue. But the legendaries, the only way to play the legendaries right now is for you to buy the cold foils. But now that Unlimited is going to be coming out, you're going to see a lot of players sell off their cold foil legendaries. They don't care about the most expensive value of the card, and they're going to buy the Unlimited legendaries. And we're going to see a better representation that looks a lot more like Monarch. If you look at Monarch in the market, you're seeing a lot of cold foil legendaries on the market, almost twice as many cold foil legendaries as Unlimited legendaries available on the market, because the players want the cheapest version of the card, and that is what's going on in the market. So I do think that if you're looking at what should you be doing with your cards, this seems like a good point to start thinking about the idea. I'm not telling you to buy or sell or trade. I'm just telling you, based on the history of the market, I do think we see a couple month decrease in value for the cold foil legendaries. So if you are a player or a collector, you may want to consider that and what you want to do personally in your own collectible experience. That being said, I love Tales of Aria. I think the artwork is fantastic. I think the set was really fun to play. I like the new heroes. I really like Oldhim. That's kind of where I went in this season. I kind of played through some Oldhim decks in our most recent Classic Constructed tournament in the Kitchen Table TCG Discord for last month. It was a lot of fun. The set's a lot of fun. I really love it. those are my thoughts about why it's sitting at like the $100, $120 price point, and why I think Unlimited is going to affect it. Again, all these are just my thoughts, my raw ideas. I have no extra like ideas for you. I'm not trying to push you to buy or sell or trade. Do this hobby however brings you joy. Don't worry about what anybody else says. Find joy in the cards that you enjoy, and then remember to have a great day and be kind to the people around you.